The stagecoach rattled into Santa Fe, New Mexico territory, on a blistering afternoon in July of 1878, carrying a young woman whose trembling hands clutched a bundle that held more than just her infant daughter. It held every hope and terror she possessed. Josephine Miller pressed her face closer to the dusty window, her green eyes searching the dirt streets below for any sign of the man she had traveled 3 weeks to find. Isaac Thomas had seemed so earnest in his letters, so desperate for companionship on his ranch outside of town, so willing to consider a woman he had never met as a potential bride. But those letters had been written before he knew about Emma, before he understood that Josephine came as a package, mother and child together, inseparable and slightly damaged by the whispers that had followed them out of Missouri. The baby stirred against her chest, making small mewling sounds that threatened to become a full cry. Josephine bounced her gently, whispering soft reassurances even as her own heart hammered with uncertainty. She had written to Isaac about Emma in her final letter, the one she had posted just before boarding the train in Kansas City. But she had no way of knowing if he had received it, no way of knowing if he would take one look at her with a fatherless child and send her right back where she came from. The stagecoach lurched to a stop outside the depot, and Josephine took a steadying breath. She had sold nearly everything she owned to afford this journey. There was no money for a return trip, no family waiting to take her back. Her father had made his feelings clear when she had refused to give Emma up to an orphanage, when she had insisted on keeping the child her sister had brought into the world with her dying breath. The driver opened the door with a creak of old hinges, and Josephine stepped down into the New Mexico heat, feeling it wrap around her like a wool blanket. The sun blazed overhead, turning the adobe buildings a warm terracotta that seemed to glow against the brilliant blue sky. Santa Fe was bigger than she had expected, busier, with wagons rolling past and merchants calling out their wares in both English and Spanish. She adjusted Emma in her arms, making sure the thin cotton blanket shaded the baby's face from the harsh sunlight. At 4 months old, Emma was a good baby, quiet and content most of the time with her mother's, no, her aunt's. Josephine reminded herself, with her birth mother's dark hair and her father's, whoever he had been, gray eyes. Miss Miller. Josephine spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. The man standing before her was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that strained against his worn cotton shirt. His face was tanned dark from years in the sun, with lines at the corners of his eyes that spoke of squinting across open ranges. He wore dusty chaps over his trousers, and his boots had seen better days. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, a startling shade of blue that reminded her of cornflowers in summer, and they were looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. "Mr. Thomas." She managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, madam." He removed his hat, revealing sandy brown hair that curled slightly at the ends. "I got your letter 3 days ago. Been checking every stage since then." Josephine's mouth went dry, so he knew about Emma. He knew, and yet he had come to meet her anyway. That had to be a good sign, did it not? Or perhaps he had come to tell her in person that the arrangement was off, that he had no interest in taking on another man's child. Isaac's gaze dropped to the bundle in her arms, and Josephine instinctively held Emma closer. She had prepared a dozen explanations, half-truths and careful phrasings that might make her situation seem more acceptable, but looking into those steady blue eyes, she found she could not bring herself to lie. "This is Emma," she said quietly. "She is my responsibility, and I understand if that changes things between us. I should have told you sooner, and I apologize for the deception. If you want me to make other arrangements, I will find a way, though I confess I do not know how at present." Isaac stepped closer, and Josephine forced herself not to retreat. He was studying Emma with an intensity that made her nervous, his eyes moving over the baby's small face, her tiny fingers that had escaped the blanket and were waving aimlessly in the air. Then he smiled, a slow, genuine expression that transformed his entire face, and said the last words Josephine had expected to hear. Perfect timing. Josephine blinked, certain she had misheard. "I beg your pardon." "Perfect timing," Isaac repeated, reaching out to gently touch one of Emma's small hands. The baby's fingers immediately closed around his much larger one, gripping with surprising strength. I was worried, truth be told, about bringing a woman out to the ranch who might not be prepared for the hard work, the isolation. But a woman who has been caring for a baby, traveling alone with a child, that takes real courage and determination. Those are exactly the qualities a ranch wife needs. Josephine stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "You are not angry that I kept this from you? I wish you had told me sooner, would have saved you some worry," Isaac said, his eyes meeting hers again. "But I understand why you did not. Folks can be cruel about such things, quick to judge without knowing the full story. I am not one of those folks, Miss Miller. I wrote to you because I need a partner, someone strong and capable who can build a life with me out here. If anything, Emma proves you are exactly that kind of woman." The relief that flooded through Josephine was so intense it made her knees weak. She had to lock them to keep from swaying. "You truly do not mind." "I do not mind," Isaac confirmed. He tickled Emma's palm gently, and the baby made a cooing sound that seemed to delight him. "Though I confess I know next to nothing about babies, you will have to teach me." "There is not much to know at this age," Josephine said, finding herself smiling for the first time in weeks. "Feed her, change her, hold her when she cries. She is a good baby, does not fuss much." "Takes after her mother then," Isaac said, then seemed to catch himself. "Her aunt, I mean. I apologize, that was presumptuous of me." "No, you are right," Josephine said softly. "She is my sister's child by birth, but I am raising her as my own. Her mother, my sister Judith, she died bringing Emma into the world. Her last words were asking me to care for the baby, to love her as if she were mine. And I do. I love her with everything I have." Isaac's expression softened with sympathy. "I am sorry for your loss." Losing a sister, that must have been hard. "It was," Josephine admitted. The grief was still fresh enough to sting, even after 4 months. "But Emma helps. She is a piece of Judith that I still have, a reason to keep going when things get difficult." "Well, things are about to get a lot less difficult," Isaac said with quiet confidence. "Why do not we get your trunk loaded onto my wagon and I will take you out to the ranch? It is about an hour's ride from town. We can talk on the way, get to know each other a bit better before we visit the priest." "The priest?" Josephine repeated, her heart skipping again. "For the wedding," Isaac said, looking at her questioningly. "I mean, that is why you came, is it not, to marry me? Or did you want more time to decide? I do not want to rush you if you are not ready." Josephine thought about the long journey from Missouri, the fear and uncertainty that had plagued every mile. She thought about Isaac's kind eyes, his gentle handling of Emma, the way he had called her arrival perfect timing instead of problematic. She thought about the alternatives, trying to find work in Santa Fe with a baby to care for, facing the judgment and gossip that had driven her from her hometown. "I am ready," she said firmly. "I came here to marry you, Mr. Thomas, and that has not changed." "Isaac," he corrected with another smile. "If we are going to be married, you should call me Isaac." "Isaac," she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. "And you must call me Josephine, or Josie if you prefer." "Josie," he said, seeming to like the sound of it. "All right then, Josie. Let us get you home." The wagon ride out of Santa Fe gave Josephine her first real look at the New Mexico territory, and it was like nothing she had ever seen before. The landscape rolled out in shades of gold and rust, dotted with strange plants Isaac called sagebrush and yucca. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding patches of snow despite the summer heat. The sky seemed impossibly vast, stretching from horizon to horizon without the interruption of trees or buildings. Isaac's ranch, when they finally reached it, was modest but well-maintained. The house itself was built in the territorial style, long and low with thick adobe walls and a covered porch that wrapped around two sides. There was a barn, a stable, several corrals, and what looked like a bunkhouse in the distance where Isaac explained his 3 ranch hands stayed. "It is not much," Isaac said as he helped her down from the wagon, careful of the sleeping Emma in her arms. "But it is mine, clear and free. My father left it to me when he passed 2 years back. The cattle operation is small, only about 200 head right now, but I am building it up slowly. There is good water on the property, 2 springs that never run dry, and enough grazing land to support twice what I have got now." Josephine looked around, trying to imagine this as her home. It was isolated, certainly, with no other houses visible in any direction. But there was something peaceful about that, something appealing about the idea of building a life away from prying eyes and wagging tongues. "It is lovely," she said honestly. "Very different from Missouri, but lovely." "Come inside, I will show you around," Isaac said, leading her up the porch steps. "I have been trying to keep it clean, but I warn you, a bachelor's idea of housekeeping and a lady's are probably very different." He was right about that. The house was tidy enough, but it lacked the touches that made a place feel like a home. The furniture was functional but sparse, the walls were bare, and the kitchen, though equipped with everything necessary, had the air of a space that was used for survival rather than pleasure. But Josephine could see the potential. The main room was spacious with windows that let in plenty of light. There was a large fireplace for winter warmth, and the floors were solid pine, well worn but beautiful. Off the main room were 3 smaller rooms, one that Isaac clearly used as a bedroom, one that appeared to be storage, and one that was completely empty. "I thought that room there could be for the baby," Isaac said, pointing to the empty one. "We would need to get some furniture, a cradle and such, but there is a carpenter in town who does good work. Could have it ready in a week or so." "That would be wonderful," Josephine said, touched that he was already thinking of Emma's needs. "For now, she sleeps with me anyway. She is too young to be alone through the night." Isaac nodded, though he looked a bit uncertain. "I confess I am out of my depth here. I have never been around babies much. My mother died when I was young and I had no siblings. It was just me and my father, and he was not the type for children. Raised me to work cattle and not much else." "You will learn," Josephine assured him. "Babies are not as complicated as they seem. Emma will teach you what she needs." They spent the next hour discussing practical matters. Isaac explained the ranch routine, the help he had hired, and what role he hoped Josephine would fill. He was clear that he needed a true partner, someone who could manage the household but also understand the business side of ranching. He wanted her opinions on decisions, her help with planning for the future. "I am not looking for a servant," he said bluntly as they sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee. "I am looking for a wife, a real wife. Someone I can talk to at the end of the day, someone who cares about making this place succeed as much as I do. If that is not what you want, if you were hoping for something different, tell me now." Josephine met his eyes steadily. "That is exactly what I want. I want to build something, to be part of something bigger than just surviving day to day. I want Emma to grow up seeing what hard work and dedication can achieve. I want her to have a real home, a real family." Something shifted in Isaac's expression, a warmth that had not been there before. "Then I think we are going to do just fine together, Josie." They rode back into Santa Fe the next morning, this time in Isaac's better wagon with Emma nestled in a small basket between them. Isaac had suggested they wait a few days, give Josephine time to settle in, but she had insisted on moving forward quickly. The longer they waited, the more complicated things would become, and she wanted the security of marriage, wanted to know for certain that she and Emma had a place to belong. The Catholic church in Santa Fe was beautiful, with its adobe walls and carved wooden doors. Father Miguel was a kind elderly man who asked them very few questions, seemingly content with Isaac's assurance that they were both free to marry and sincere in their intentions. The ceremony was simple and quick, conducted in a mixture of English and Spanish that Josephine barely followed. She wore her best dress, a pale blue cotton that had survived the journey relatively unwrinkled, and Isaac had cleaned up considerably, shaving and putting on what was clearly his only good shirt. When Father Miguel pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac leaned down to kiss her, a brief gentle press of lips that sent an unexpected flutter through Josephine's stomach. His hand on her waist was warm and steady, and for just a moment, she let herself imagine that this might become something more than a practical arrangement, that the kindness he had shown might grow into real affection. Emma chose that moment to wake up and cry, breaking the moment but making them both laugh. Isaac picked up the basket while Josephine signed the marriage register, and by the time they walked back out into the sunlight, they were legally a family. "Mrs. Thomas," Isaac said, testing out her new name. "How does that sound?" "Strange," Josephine admitted, "but good, very good." They stopped at the general store on the way back to the ranch, and Isaac bought supplies with an extravagance that surprised her. He insisted on purchasing fabric for new dresses, good quality muslin for baby clothes, sugar and coffee and other luxuries that Josephine had learned to do without. "We may be out in the middle of nowhere, but that is no reason to live like paupers," he said, when she protested the expense. "Besides, my wife should have nice things, and Emma is growing fast. She will need clothes that actually fit." His wife. The words sent another flutter through Josephine's chest. She was someone's wife again, though calling it again was not quite accurate since her first marriage had never actually happened. Daniel had promised to marry her sister, had promised many things, and then had disappeared the moment Judith told him about the baby. It was his abandonment that had broken Judith's spirit, that had made the difficult labor impossible for her to survive. But Josephine pushed those dark thoughts away. This was different. Isaac was different. He had proven that already. The first weeks of their marriage fell into a comfortable routine. Josephine woke before dawn to prepare breakfast for Isaac and his ranch hands, simple meals of biscuits and bacon and strong coffee. Isaac would eat quickly and head out to work, often not returning until sunset. Josephine spent her days caring for Emma, exploring the house and making small improvements, learning the rhythms of ranch life. The three ranch hands, Miguel, Tom, and Billy, were respectful but clearly uncertain how to act around a woman and baby. Miguel was the oldest, a weathered Mexican man in his 50s who had worked for Isaac's father. Tom and Billy were younger, rough cowboys who spent most of their time in the bunkhouse when they were not working. Isaac's foreman, a gruff man named James Wheeler, was less welcoming. He made no secret of his opinion that bringing a woman and baby to a working ranch was foolish, though he kept his complaints to quiet grumbling that Josephine was not supposed to overhear. She tried not to let it bother her, focusing instead on making the house into a real home. She sewed curtains for the windows, brought in wildflowers to brighten the main room, and established a garden plot near the kitchen where she planned to grow vegetables. Isaac noticed the changes, and his appreciation was obvious. He started lingering after dinner, sitting with her in the main room while she mended clothes or rocked Emma to sleep. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their pasts, their hopes for the future. Josephine learned that Isaac loved this land with a fierce passion, that he dreamed of building the ranch into something substantial that could support not just him but a whole family. "I want Emma to have stability," Josephine confided one evening as they watched the sunset from the porch. Emma was asleep in her arms, her small face peaceful and perfect. "I want her to grow up knowing she is loved and wanted, that she has a place in the world." "She will," Isaac said quietly. "I promise you that, Josie. I know I am not her father, but I will do my best to be what she needs. She will never want for anything if I can help it." The sincerity in his voice made Josephine's eyes sting with unexpected tears. "You have already given us more than I dared hope for. You could have turned us away, could have said this was not what you signed up for, but you did not. You welcomed us, both of us, without hesitation." Isaac reached over and took her free hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. "I meant what I said that first day, Josie. Perfect timing. I needed you both, even if I did not know it until I saw you step off that stage." The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility, and Josephine found herself wondering what it would be like to kiss him again. Really kiss him, not the brief ceremonial touch they had shared at their wedding. But before she could gather the courage to lean closer, Emma stirred and whimpered, breaking the spell. Isaac pulled his hand back, clearing his throat. "I should check on the horses before full dark. Miguel mentioned one of the mares seemed off her feed today." He was gone before Josephine could respond, leaving her alone with the baby and a strange ache in her chest that felt surprisingly like disappointment. August melted into September, and the heat began to ease into something more bearable. The ranch kept Isaac busy from dawn to dusk, and Josephine fell into the demanding rhythm of ranch wife life. She learned to make meals that could stretch to feed hungry cowboys, to preserve food for the long winter ahead, to read the sky for signs of rain or storms. Emma grew and changed almost daily, becoming more alert and responsive. She smiled now, real genuine smiles that lit up her whole face, and she had started to laugh, a delightful gurgling sound that never failed to make Isaac grin like a fool. Isaac, for his part, had become surprisingly devoted to the baby. He insisted on holding her after dinner each night, bouncing her gently while Josephine cleaned up the kitchen. He made her toys from scraps of wood, carved rattles, and smooth animals that Emma was still too young to appreciate but would treasure later. Watching him with Emma did strange things to Josephine's heart. She had entered this marriage expecting practicality, mutual respect at best. She had not expected this growing tenderness, this sense that they were building something real together. But Isaac never pushed for more than she offered. He had been sleeping in what had been the storage room since the wedding, giving Josephine the main bedroom with Emma. He was unfailingly polite, respectful, treating her more like a valued business partner than a wife in the traditional sense. Josephine told herself she should be grateful for that, for his patience and consideration. But late at night, alone in the bed that should have been theirs to share, she found herself wondering if his restraint came from respect or from lack of interest. The answer came unexpectedly one afternoon in late September. Josephine had taken Emma outside to enjoy the cooler weather, spreading a blanket under the cottonwood tree near the house. She was playing with the baby, making her laugh by blowing raspberries on her stomach, when she heard shouting from the direction of the corrals. Scooping up Emma, Josephine hurried toward the sound, her heart pounding with worry. She arrived to find Isaac and James Wheeler in a heated argument, their voices carrying clearly across the open space. "She is my wife, Wheeler, and you will show her the respect she is due," Isaac was saying, his voice tight with anger. "I am just saying it is not natural, raising another man's bastard like it is your own," Wheeler shot back. "Folks in town are talking, saying you must be the father, that you are claiming otherwise to protect your reputation." "I do not give a damn what folks in town are saying," Isaac growled. "And if I hear you using that word to describe Emma again, you can pack your gear and get off my property." "Is that clear?" Wheeler's face flushed red. "I have worked this ranch for 5 years, since before your father died. You cannot just throw me out over some woman you barely know." "Watch me," Isaac said coldly. "I married Josie because I wanted a wife, a partner. Emma is part of that package, and I would not have it any other way. If you cannot accept that, if you are going to spread poisonous gossip and make my family uncomfortable, then you are no use to me here." Josephine's breath caught at the words, "my family." He had called them his family. Wheeler noticed her standing there, and his expression turned ugly. "Speak of the devil. Maybe you should ask your wife what she was doing to catch a husband so fast, arriving with a baby and no husband in sight." The words hit like a physical blow, all of Josephine's worst fears given voice. Before she could respond, Isaac moved faster than she had ever seen him, grabbing Wheeler by the shirt and slamming him back against the corral fence. "You are done here," Isaac said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Pack your things and be gone by sundown. You will get the wages owed to you, nothing more." Wheeler shoved Isaac back, his hand moving toward the gun at his hip. Time seemed to slow, and Josephine clutched Emma tighter, her whole body going cold with fear. But Isaac was faster, his own gun drawn and pointed at Wheeler before the foreman could clear his holster. "Do not be a fool," Isaac said flatly. "Take the out I am giving you and ride away. There is no version of this that ends well for you if you draw that weapon." For a long, tense moment, Wheeler looked like he might do something stupid. Then he glanced past Isaac to where Miguel and the other ranch hands had gathered, clearly ready to back Isaac up, and his shoulders slumped. "Fine," he spat. "Keep your whore and her bastard. See how long you last trying to run this place without me." Isaac's jaw clenched, but he holstered his gun and stepped back. "You have until sundown, Wheeler. Do not test me on that." Wheeler stalked off toward the bunkhouse, and Isaac turned to find Josephine still standing there, pale and shaking. In 3 long strides he was at her side, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Are you all right? Did he say anything else to you before I got here?" Josephine shook her head, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Emma, sensing her distress, started to fuss, and Josephine automatically bounced her, though her movements were stiff and mechanical. "Josie, look at me," Isaac said softly. When she raised her eyes to his, she was surprised to see not anger but concern. "Do not let his words get to you. He is a bitter man who cannot stand seeing other people happy. What he said, none of it is true and none of it matters. But people are talking," Josephine whispered. "In town, they are saying things about us, about Emma." "Let them talk," Isaac said firmly. "We know the truth, and that is all that matters. You came here honestly, told me about Emma from the start. I chose to marry you, chose to take on the responsibility of raising her. That makes her mine in every way that counts." The tears Josephine had been holding back spilled over. "You could have walked away. When you got my letter, you could have written back saying the arrangement was off. Why did you not?" Isaac's hand slid from her shoulders to gently cup her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "Do you really not know?" She stared at him, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. "I fell in love with you through your letters," Isaac said quietly. "The way you wrote about the world, about your hopes and dreams, about finding a place to belong. I felt like I understood you, like maybe you could understand me too. When I got that final letter, the one about Emma, I was not disappointed. I was relieved." "Relieved," Josephine breathed. "Relieved that you trusted me enough to tell me the truth. Relieved that you were brave enough to keep that baby when it would have been easier to give her up. It told me everything I needed to know about your character, about the kind of woman you are." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "And when I saw you step off that stage with her in your arms, looking so scared and determined and beautiful, I knew I was a goner." "Isaac," Josephine whispered, not sure what she was asking for, only that she needed something she could not name. He seemed to understand anyway. He leaned down slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and kissed her. Not the brief ceremonial kiss from their wedding, but a real kiss, deep and tender and full of months of restrained longing. Josephine kissed him back with everything she had, one hand still supporting Emma while the other fisted in Isaac's shirt, pulling him closer. This was what she had been waiting for, what she had been afraid to hope for, this feeling of being wanted not despite her circumstances but including them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I have been trying to be respectful, trying to give you space to adjust. But I want you to know, Josie, I do not see you as just a convenient arrangement. I see you as my wife in every sense of the word. If you are not ready for that yet, I understand. I will wait as long as you need, but I needed you to know how I feel." "I am ready," Josephine said without hesitation. "I have been ready for weeks, but I thought you were just being kind, that you did not truly want us the way I was starting to want you." Isaac laughed, the sound rough with relief. "Want you? Josie, it has been torture sleeping in that damn storage room, knowing you are just on the other side of the wall. I want you so much it keeps me awake at night." Heat flooded Josephine's cheeks, but she smiled. "Then perhaps tonight you should stop sleeping in the storage room." His eyes darkened with promise. "Perhaps I should." Emma, who had been remarkably patient during all of this, chose that moment to voice her displeasure at being squished between them. They broke apart laughing, and Isaac dropped a kiss on the baby's head. "Sorry, little one," he said. "Got a bit carried away there." Miguel approached cautiously, clearing his throat. "Boss, Wheeler is loading his horse. Thought you should know." Isaac nodded, his arms sliding around Josephine's waist to pull her against his side. "Keep an eye on him until he is gone. I do not trust him not to cause trouble on his way out. See, boss." Miguel paused, then added, "For what it is worth, the men and I, we are glad you sent him packing. He was always making trouble, always complaining, and we like the Senora. She makes good food and is kind to us. The baby, too, she is sweet." "Thank you, Miguel," Josephine said, touched by the unexpected support. "That means a great deal to me." After Miguel left, Isaac and Josephine walked back to the house together, his arm still around her waist, Emma content in her arms. The afternoon had been difficult, even frightening, but Josephine felt lighter than she had in months. Everything was finally out in the open, the truth spoken and accepted. That night, after Emma was settled in her cradle, after the house was quiet and dark, Isaac came to Josephine's room as she had asked him to. He was nervous, she could tell, his movements hesitant as he sat on the edge of the bed. "We do not have to do anything you are not ready for," he said quietly. "Just being able to sleep beside you, that is enough for now." But Josephine had spent too many nights alone, too many years feeling unwanted and judged. She reached for him, pulling him down beside her, and showed him without words that she was very much ready, that she wanted all of him, this good, kind man who had given her and Emma a second chance at happiness. Their joining was gentle and sweet, full of whispered promises and soft sighs. Isaac treated her like she was something precious, something to be cherished, and when it was over he held her close, his hand resting protectively on her hip. "I love you, Josie," he murmured into her hair. "I know it is fast, but I do. I love you and Emma both." "I love you too," Josephine whispered back, the words feeling right and true. "Thank you for seeing past everything else, for giving us a home. Thank you for being brave enough to come here, for trusting me with your heart." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "This is just the beginning for us, Josie. We are going to build something amazing together, I promise you that." And lying there in the darkness, wrapped in her husband's arms, listening to Emma's soft breathing from the cradle nearby, Josephine believed him completely. The winter of 1878 brought snow to the New Mexico territory, transforming the golden landscape into something white and magical. The ranch work slowed but never stopped, and Isaac spent long, cold days riding fence lines and checking on scattered cattle. Josephine kept the house warm and welcoming, mastering the art of the massive fireplace and learning to cook with what they had stored from the fall harvest. Emma, now 7 months old, was learning to sit up on her own and showed signs of trying to crawl. She was fascinated by the snow, pressing her face to the windows and laughing at the white world outside. Life had settled into something comfortable and deeply satisfying. Isaac was everything Josephine had hoped for in a husband and more. He was patient with Emma's nighttime crying, often getting up to rock her so Josephine could rest. He consulted Josephine on every major ranch decision, truly treating her as an equal partner. And at night, in the privacy of their bedroom, he showed her a passion and tenderness that left her breathless. The town gossip had not entirely died down, but Josephine found she cared less and less about what strangers thought. The people who mattered, Miguel and the other ranch hands, the shopkeepers they dealt with regularly, the priest who had married them, all treated her with respect and kindness. In December, Josephine realized she might be pregnant. She waited until she was sure, until she had missed 2 courses and started feeling the familiar queasiness of early pregnancy, before telling Isaac. His reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy, then immediately set her down with a worried expression. "Sorry, should I not have done that? Is it safe? I do not want to hurt you or the baby." Josephine laughed at his concern. "I am pregnant, not made of glass." "But perhaps no more spinning." "A baby," Isaac said, still grinning like a fool. "Our baby. Emma is going to be a big sister." "She is," Josephine agreed, feeling her own joy bubble up. "Are you happy about it?" "Happy, Josie, I am over the moon." He pulled her close, kissing her soundly. "I know we have not been married long, and maybe we should have waited, but I cannot help being thrilled. A child who is part you and part me, who will grow up alongside Emma, who will have the family we are building together." That night, they lay in bed talking about the future. Isaac wanted at least 3 or 4 children, enough to fill the house with noise and laughter. Josephine found herself agreeing, imagining their children growing up on this ranch, learning to ride and work cattle, having the stability and love she had never known growing up. "What if it is a boy?" Isaac asked, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "I always thought if I had a son, I would name him after my father, but Henry is such an old-fashioned name." "I like Henry," Josephine said. "It is strong, traditional, but we have plenty of time to decide." "The baby will not be here until summer." "Summer," Isaac repeated. "Emma will be walking by then. She can help us with the new baby." Josephine laughed at the image. "I think she will be a bit young for that, but I am sure she will be very interested in her little brother or sister." The months passed quickly. Emma did indeed learn to walk, taking her first wobbly steps in March to the delight of everyone on the ranch. Miguel carved her a small wooden horse that became her favorite toy, and even Tom and Billy, the rough cowboys, would stop their work to play with her when she toddled outside. Josephine's pregnancy progressed normally, though the heat of early summer made her uncomfortable. Isaac fussed over her constantly, trying to keep her from doing too much work, insisting she rest in the afternoons. "I am not an invalid," she protested, one particularly hot day in June. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I can manage making dinner." "I know you can," Isaac said, gently steering her toward a chair. "But why should you when I can do it instead? Besides, my cooking has improved significantly since you taught me a few things." It was true. Isaac had learned the basics of cooking and was actually quite competent now. He made simple meals for the ranch hands when Josephine was too tired, and he had taken over the bread baking entirely, claiming he found it relaxing. They had also hired a woman from town, Mrs. Sarah Chen, to come help with the housework and to be present for the birth. Sarah was the widow of a Chinese railroad worker, and she had experience as a midwife. Josephine liked her immediately, appreciating her calm competence and gentle humor. The baby came on a sweltering afternoon in early July, just days after Emma's first birthday. The labor was hard but mercifully short, and when Sarah placed the squalling infant in Josephine's arms, she felt a surge of love so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "A boy," Sarah announced with a smile. "A big, healthy boy." Isaac, who had been pacing anxiously in the main room, burst into the bedroom the moment he heard the baby's cry. His face was white with worry, but it transformed into wonder when he saw the child. "Is he all right? Are you all right?" he asked, moving to Josephine's side. "We are both fine," Josephine assured him, exhausted but happy. "Come meet your son." Isaac sat carefully on the edge of the bed, his large hands trembling slightly as he reached for the baby. The infant, who had been crying lustily, quieted the moment his father held him, his tiny face scrunching up as he tried to focus on this new person. "Hello there, little man," Isaac said softly. "I am your papa, and that beautiful woman there is your mama. We have been waiting for you." Josephine's heart swelled watching them together. This was what she had dreamed of, what she had hardly dared hope for, a real family built on love and trust. "Henry," she said, "if you still want to name him Henry." Isaac looked up, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Henry Thomas, I like that. It is a good, strong name." He glanced toward the door where Emma was peeking in, held in Sarah's arms. "And there is his big sister. Come to meet him." Sarah brought Emma over, and the little girl stared at the baby with wide, curious eyes. She reached out one chubby hand to touch his head, then looked up at Josephine with a questioning expression. "Baby," Josephine explained. "This is your baby brother, Henry. You have to be very gentle with him." Emma seemed to understand. She patted the baby's head carefully, then grinned at Isaac. "Baby," she repeated, one of her few clear words. "That is right, sweetheart," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion. "Our baby, our family." The rest of the summer passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. Henry was not as easy a baby as Emma had been. He cried more, wanted to be held constantly, and had a set of lungs that could wake the dead. But Josephine did not mind. There was something healing about caring for this child she had carried, this baby who was hers and Isaac's together, proof of the love they had built. Isaac was a devoted father, taking turns with the night feedings, bouncing Henry for hours when nothing else would settle him. He was just as devoted to Emma, making sure the toddler did not feel neglected now that there was a new baby demanding attention. Watching him with the children, Josephine sometimes had to pinch herself to believe this was her life now. She had gone from being alone and terrified, facing motherhood with no support, to being surrounded by love and security. One evening in late August, after both children were finally asleep, Isaac and Josephine sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the air had finally cooled to something bearable. "I was thinking," Isaac said, reaching over to take Josephine's hand, "that we should take a family photograph next time we are in town, something we can hang in the house, show the children when they are older." "I would like that," Josephine said, "though getting Henry to hold still long enough might be challenging." Isaac laughed. "We will manage somehow. I want to remember this, Josie. I want to remember how it feels right now, with our family just starting, with everything ahead of us." "We will have plenty more memories to make," Josephine said, squeezing his hand. "This is just the beginning, like you said on our wedding night." "Speaking of which," Isaac said with a mischievous smile, "our first anniversary is coming up in a few weeks. We should do something to celebrate." "Like what?" "We cannot exactly leave the children and go somewhere." "No, but we could have a nice dinner, just the two of us after they are asleep. Maybe I will see if Sarah can come stay for an evening, help with the children so we can have some time together." Josephine smiled at the thought. As much as she loved being a mother, the idea of a quiet evening with just Isaac sounded wonderful. That would be lovely. Their anniversary dinner was simple but perfect. Sarah agreed to stay with the children, and Isaac cooked Josephine's favorite meal, beefsteak with potatoes and fresh bread. He had even managed to acquire a bottle of wine from somewhere, a luxury they rarely indulged in. They ate by candlelight at the kitchen table, talking and laughing like they had when they were first getting to know each other. Isaac told her stories from his childhood, things he had never shared before, and Josephine found herself opening up about her own past, about her difficult relationship with her father, about the sister she still grieved for. "You think Judith would be happy?" Josephine asked. "Seeing how Emma is growing up, seeing the life we have built." Isaac considered the question seriously. "I think she would be grateful that her daughter is loved and cared for, and I think she would be happy that you found happiness too. You deserve it, Josie. You deserve all of this and more." After dinner, they moved to the porch, sitting close together on the bench Isaac had built. The night was clear and cool, the stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. "I never imagined this," Josephine admitted quietly. "When I got on that stagecoach in Missouri, I was so scared. I thought at best I would find a man willing to tolerate Emma's presence, to give us a roof over our heads. I never imagined I would find love, real love." "I never imagined it either," Isaac said, his arm tight around her shoulders. "I thought I was just looking for someone to help run the ranch, someone to keep me from being lonely. I did not expect to find my soulmate." Josephine turned to look at him, her heart full to bursting. "Is that what I am, your soulmate? You are everything," Isaac said simply. "You and Emma and Henry. You are my whole world. This ranch, all the cattle, none of it means anything without you here to share it with." They kissed under the stars, and for a moment, Josephine was transported back to that first night when everything was new and uncertain. But this was better, so much better, because now she knew beyond any doubt that Isaac meant every word he said, that the love between them was real and lasting. The years that followed were full and rich. The ranch prospered, growing from 200 head of cattle to nearly 500. Isaac hired more hands, built a second barn, and expanded the house to accommodate their growing family. Emma grew from a toddler into a bright, curious child who loved to follow Isaac around the ranch, imitating everything he did. She was gentle and sweet, with a special talent for handling horses that showed itself early. Isaac started teaching her to ride when she was 4, and by 6, She could sit a horse as well as any adult. Henry was more serious than his sister, thoughtful and careful in everything he did. He loved learning, constantly asking questions about how things worked. Isaac taught him to read using an old primer that had been his own, and soon Henry was devouring every book they could get their hands on. In 1881, Josephine gave birth to another boy, whom they named Peter. He was a cheerful baby, always smiling and laughing, and he quickly became the darling of the household. Emma doted on him, and Henry took his role as big brother very seriously, always watching out for the younger child. The family was complete, or so Josephine thought, until 1883 when she discovered she was pregnant again at 33. This pregnancy was harder than the others, leaving her more tired and sick. But when she gave birth to twin girls in early 1884, Josephine felt nothing but joy. They named the twins Alice and Ruth, and they were identical in every way, with Josephine's green eyes and Isaac's sandy hair. The house was chaos, with 5 children ranging in age from newborn to almost 7 years old, but it was a happy chaos, full of laughter and love. Isaac thrived as a father. He was endlessly patient with the children, teaching them about the ranch, about the land, about the values of hard work and integrity. He treated Emma exactly the same as his biological children, never making any distinction between them. To everyone in the family and beyond, Emma was his daughter in every way that mattered. The town of Santa Fe had grown considerably over the years, and with growth came acceptance. The old gossip about Josephine and Emma had faded, replaced by the newer scandals and stories that always circulated in any community. The Thomas family was known and respected, Isaac for his successful ranch and fair treatment of his employees, Josephine for her kindness and strong character. On Emma's 10th birthday in 1888, Isaac organized a special celebration. He had saved for months to buy her a horse of her own, a beautiful bay mare that Emma immediately named Juniper. The joy on the girl's face when she saw the horse brought tears to both Isaac and Josephine's eyes. That evening, after the party was over and the younger children were in bed, Emma came to find Josephine in the kitchen where she was cleaning up. "Mama, can I ask you something?" Emma said, her young face serious. "Of course, darling. What is it?" Emma hesitated, then said, "Some of the girls at school, they said that Papa is not my real father. They said I am just like their father's orphan nephew who they took in out of charity. Is that true?" Josephine's heart clenched. She dried her hands on a towel and sat down, pulling Emma onto her lap even though the girl was really getting too big for it. "Emma, sweetheart, Papa is your real father in every way that counts. He chose you, chose to be your father from the moment he first saw you. And he loves you every bit as much as he loves Henry and Peter and the twins. You are his daughter, and you are my daughter, and nothing anyone says can change that." "But where did I come from?" Emma asked. "If you and Papa are my parents, why are people saying things?" Josephine had known this conversation would come eventually, but that did not make it any easier. She took a deep breath and decided to tell Emma the truth, or at least a version of it that a 10-year-old could understand. "You are actually my sister Judith's daughter by birth," she explained gently. "Your birth mother, my sister. She got very sick after you were born, and she asked me to take care of you, to raise you as my own. And I do, Emma. You are my daughter in my heart, and Papa became your father the day we arrived here. He saw you and immediately loved you." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then she asked, "Did my birth mother love me?" "Very much," Josephine assured her, "with all her heart. Her last words were about you, making sure you would be cared for and loved." "And you loved her? She was my sister. Of course I loved her." Emma nodded slowly. I am glad you kept me. I am glad I got to be part of this family. We are glad too, sweetheart, so very glad. Josephine hugged her tight. And do not let anyone at school tell you differently. You belong here with us always. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. She hugged Josephine back, then went to find Isaac to thank him again for the horse. Later that night, Josephine told Isaac about the conversation, and he immediately went to Emma's room to reassure her himself that she was and would always be his daughter. The next week, Isaac rode into town and made a formal statement to the county clerk that Emma was legally his child through adoption. It was something he had been meaning to do for years, but had kept putting off. Now, with Emma old enough to face questions and judgment, he wanted to make sure there was no legal ambiguity about her status in the family. When he came home and told Emma what he had done, showing her the official paperwork that now listed her as Emma Catherine Thomas, daughter of Isaac and Josephine Thomas, the girl burst into tears and threw herself into his arms. "Thank you, Papa," she sobbed. "Thank you for being my father." Isaac held her close, his own eyes wet. "Thank you for being my daughter, Emma. You made me a father before any of the others were born. You will always be special to me." The years continued to roll by, bringing changes and challenges, but always within the context of love and family. The ranch continued to prosper, becoming one of the most successful operations in the county. Isaac bought more land, expanding their holdings, and hired more men to help manage the growing operation. Henry showed an aptitude for business that surprised them all. By the time he was 12, he was helping Isaac with the books, spotting inefficiencies and suggesting improvements. Isaac started talking about him taking over the ranch someday, running it with Emma's help since she was clearly born to work with cattle and horses. Peter was the artistic one, always drawing or carving things from wood. He was also the most social of the children, making friends easily and charming everyone he met. The twins, Alice and Ruth, were inseparable and mischievous, constantly getting into trouble but impossible to stay mad at. In 1892, when Emma was 14 and showing signs of becoming a beautiful young woman, young men started paying attention. Isaac took this development badly, suddenly seeing danger everywhere and growling at any boy who dared smile at his daughter. Josephine found it amusing, watching her normally calm husband turn into an overprotective bear. "She is 14, Isaac, not ready to get married. Stop scaring every potential friend away." "I am not scaring anyone," Isaac protested. "I am just making sure they understand that Emma is precious and not to be trifled with. You threatened the Johnson boy with a shotgun last week. He was looking at her inappropriately. He was holding a door open for her at church." Despite his protective instincts, Isaac gradually relaxed as he saw that Emma had a good head on her shoulders. She was not interested in boys yet anyway, more focused on learning everything she could about running the ranch. She rode with Isaac every day, helped with the spring roundup, and could rope a calf as well as any of the ranch hands. The turn of the century brought even more changes. Railroads expanded across the West, making it easier to transport cattle to market. Automobiles started appearing, though they were still rare and unreliable. The wild frontier of Isaac and Josephine's youth was slowly being tamed, turned into something more settled and civilized. But through it all, the ranch remained a constant, a piece of the Old West preserved in the growing modern world. Isaac and Josephine, now in their 40s, worked side by side as they always had, partners in every sense of the word. On their 25th anniversary in 1903, the children organized a surprise party. Emma, now a stunning young woman of 25 and recently married to a neighboring rancher's son, arranged everything. Henry, 22 and preparing to take over more of the ranch operations, handled the logistics. Peter, 19 and studying art in Denver, came home for the occasion. And the twins, now 17 and causing havoc everywhere they went, decorated the house and baked the cake. The party was a huge success, with half the county showing up to celebrate. Isaac and Josephine stood together, watching their children laugh and dance, seeing the community they had built around them, and felt nothing but gratitude. 25 years, Isaac said, pulling Josephine close. Can you believe it? Barely, Josephine admitted. Sometimes I still feel like that terrified girl stepping off the stagecoach, hoping against hope that you would not send me away. Best day of my life when that stagecoach arrived, Isaac said. Well, best day until I saw Emma's first smile. And Henry's birth, and every other milestone with our children. I guess what I am saying is, every day with you has been the best day. Josephine laughed, turning in his arms to kiss him. That is the most ridiculous and wonderful thing you have ever said. They danced together while their children and friends clapped and cheered, and Josephine thought about the journey that had brought them here. She had come to Santa Fe expecting to find at best tolerance, at worst rejection. Instead, she had found love, acceptance, and a family beyond her wildest dreams. What are you thinking about? Isaac asked, reading her expression as he so often could. About perfect timing, Josephine said with a smile. About how you looked at me and Emma that first day and saw possibility instead of problems. About how lucky we are. I am the lucky one, Isaac insisted. You made me a husband, a father, a better man than I ever would have been alone. We made each other better, Josephine corrected. That is what love does. The years ahead would bring more changes and challenges. Emma would give them grandchildren, the first arriving in 1905, a robust boy they named after Isaac. Henry would take over the ranch, proving to be an even more successful manager than his father. Peter would become a renowned artist, his paintings of Western landscapes selling for significant sums in cities back east. The twins would both marry well and have families of their own. But through it all, Isaac and Josephine remained at the center of the family they had built, a testament to the power of love and second chances. They grew old together on the ranch, watching sunsets from the same porch where they had shared their first real kiss, where they had celebrated anniversaries and milestones, where they had built a life together. In 1920, when Isaac was 65 and Josephine was 63, they celebrated their 42nd anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The house Isaac had once thought too large for a bachelor was now bursting at the seams with family. That evening, after everyone had left and the house was quiet again, Isaac and Josephine sat together watching the stars come out. Isaac's hair was white now, his face deeply lined from decades in the sun, but his blue eyes still held the same kindness and love that had first drawn Josephine to him. "Do you remember what you said when you first saw me?" Josephine asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Perfect timing, you said." "I remember," Isaac said, his arm around her shoulders. "And I was right, was I not? You and Emma, you came into my life at exactly the right moment. I cannot imagine how empty my life would have been without you." "I think about that sometimes," Josephine admitted. "About what would have happened if you had turned me away, if you had been like all the others who saw a woman with a fatherless child and only saw shame. Then I would have missed out on the greatest blessing of my life," Isaac said simply. "Emma made our family what it is, Josie. She was our first child, the one who taught us how to be parents. Henry and Peter and the twins, they are all precious, but Emma started it all. She brought us together." Josephine smiled, thinking of Emma, now a mother of 4 herself, still living nearby and visiting often. "She turned out well, did she not?" She turned out perfectly, Isaac agreed. Smart and strong and kind, just like her mother. Mothers, Josephine corrected gently. Judith gave her life. I just tried to honor that sacrifice. You did more than that. You gave her a home, a family, a future. You gave her love. Isaac pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Just like you gave me love. I was so lonely before you came, Josie. I did not even realize how lonely until I had you to compare it to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying being together. After 42 years of marriage, words were not always necessary. They could communicate in glances and touches, in the simple act of being present with each other. You have any regrets? Josephine asked eventually. Anything you wish we had done differently? Isaac thought about it seriously. Not a one, he finally said. Oh, there were hard times, sure. Times when the cattle prices dropped and I worried about making ends meet. Times when one of the children was sick and we were terrified. Times when the work seemed endless and overwhelming. But regrets? No. Every choice we made together, and they all led us here. How could I regret anything about that? I feel the same way, Josephine said softly. Even the hard parts, the grief and worry and fear, it was all worth it because I got to share it with you. They stayed out late that night, neither wanting to break the spell of the moment. Eventually, the cold drove them inside, and they went to bed in the room they had shared for over 4 decades, in the bed where they had loved and laughed and occasionally argued, where they had comforted each other through losses and celebrated victories together. Isaac Thomas died peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1925, at the age of 70. He went to bed one night holding Josephine's hand and simply did not wake up. It was, the doctor said, his heart giving out, worn out from 70 years of hard living and hard loving. The funeral was enormous, with people coming from all over the territory to pay their respects. Isaac had been loved and respected, known for his integrity and kindness, for building a successful ranch while never losing sight of what truly mattered, his family. Josephine grieved deeply, but found comfort in her children and grandchildren, in the legacy she and Isaac had built together. She stayed on the ranch, refusing to move despite Henry's offers to have her live with him and his family. This was her home, the place where she had found love and built a life, and she would not leave it. She lived another 10 years, dying peacefully in her sleep in 1935 at the age of 78. Her last words were to Emma, who had come to visit and was sitting beside her bed. "Tell your father I am coming," Josephine whispered, her eyes distant. "Tell him perfect timing." Emma, her own hair now showing streaks of gray, held her mother's hand and wept. "I will tell him, Mama. Rest now." When Josephine was buried next to Isaac in the small cemetery on the ranch property, Emma made sure the headstone reflected the truth of their life together. It read simply, Isaac Thomas, 1855–1925, and Josephine Catherine Thomas, 1857–1935. Partners in life, united in death. They built a legacy of love. The ranch stayed in the family for generations, a testament to what Isaac and Josephine had created together. Emma's children and grandchildren continued to work the land, and the story of how it all began, of a scared young woman with a baby and a kind cowboy who saw perfect timing instead of problems, became family legend, passed down through the years. Because that is what love does. It builds legacies that outlast mortality. It creates families from strangers. It turns fear into hope and rejection into acceptance. And sometimes, when the timing is just right, it changes everything.